Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be making another Indiana Jones Seaplane Clipper Fedora from the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. So after having it on the steam for probably about 10 minutes, I'll take it off of there and then start putting it on my hat block. So this hat block is a new shape that I made that's a little more accurate. It's going to make the hat come out to a more accurate look, kind of more of that boxy type fedora that the Raiders hats have. So the first thing I'm realizing though is that it is really hard to get the felt to stretch completely over the hat. There's like a little bubble on the top, so in order to get it completely on there, I just had to use some more steam and keep pressing it on there, and then just keep pulling it down until it's completely stretched over. This did take a little while. But I was bound and determined not to have that on top. I just wanted to have it completely on top of the block because I knew that would affect how the hat would look in the end. So now that I've got it stretched over a lot, I'll put my tie block on there. I'll start it out kind of high like this, and then make sure it's good and tight, and then I'll get my iron, my steam iron, and the first thing I'll do is I'll start steaming the top of it so that the felt becomes malleable on top to where that bubble effect will go away. My bag here was kind of messing me up a little bit, so I had to get the air out of that. So I'll start up top, start ironing it out. This will really help the felt really wrap around the hat block. And then I'll basically just work my way down. So as you can see, I'm just slowly working my string down, and when it gets low enough, I'll start steaming the brim all the way around. This is going to be an important part right here because this is going to really separate the brim from the crown. It's called the brim break. So I'll just take this. There's actually a tool that is used for this part. It's not an iron or anything, it's just a flat tool that you use to go all the way around. Of course, I don't have one of those tools, but I just used my iron for this part. And now you're really starting to be able to see that break between the crown and the brim. So I'll keep working my string down, and this is important because I want the crown, the crown of the felts to be totally flat around that block so that there's no ripples or anything. And then I'll keep going around the crown like this to really emphasize that crown break, the crown brim break. And the more pressure that I put on here, the better that it's gonna look by the time I go to take the string off. So here you're really able to see the break right there. I'll work it down. Once I have the string worked all the way down to the brim break, I will rotate it around and just make sure that it's all even, because this felt will sit on the block for about 2 to 3 days. So then after 2 or 3 days went by, I think this felt stayed on the block for probably like 3 or 4 days actually. It depends on when I can get back on it to work on it. But after it's all dry and holding its shape, that's when the sanding will begin. As far as the grit on the sanding, I don't really have an exact number that I work with. I just use one that's kind of thicker to begin with, just to get it smooth, and then I'll finish it off with the smoother sandpaper. And then after I do that, I'll go around here, and this is how I cut my brim. There's definitely a more efficient way to do this, but I don't have the tool required for this, but maybe one day I'll get it. But for now, I just go around, I make marks with a white pencil, and then I use this rolling blade that I bought from Hobby Lobby. And then I'll go around and slowly make the turns, following my white marks for hopefully a really round cut. Of course, sometimes it does end up being a little bit squared off sometimes because it's hard to make the turns, but what I'll do is sand it later so that the brim is perfectly round. So after I get that cut, there's the edge of the brim here that I'm wanting to smooth out. I've started doing this in the last couple of hats that I've made. I've noticed, especially on the Indiana Jones hats, that the brim seems to have more of a sharp edge to it rather than like a dull edge. So after sanding all the way around to make the brim round, what I'll do is I'll fold my sandpaper on the edge like this and start working on making the brim, giving the brim more of that sharp look all the way around. So it's not going to be flat going all the way around. It's going to be, as you can see here, just more of a sharper look. Since this is a Fedora, it probably just makes it look a little better. So what we have next is the sweatband. So in order to do this, I actually just got the size for my sweatband, and I'm just using a fork here to pre-punch my holes going up and down on either side of the ends of the sweatband. This will make it easier for when I sew it together. And then after I do that, I'll take my reed lines here, and what I like to do is I'll take one side and cut them off just a little bit shorter. That way this part is easier, and I'll slide them in on top of each other. And then to start off with the sewing, I'll get the top part sewn. Okay, now it's being held together by the thread up top. So now I'll start to work my way down through my pre-punched holes. And what I'll do is like a zigzag. So I'll start on one side and then go to the hole on the other side that's below it, and so on. Now let's switch to our black marker because we're still missing something on our cookies.
A funny face.
Yeah, let's start by drawing the mouth. I'm going to draw a real happy smile, and also I'm going to draw open. So a darker red for the back of the mouth. So just like this, that's one side. One thread going all the way down. So in order to make the X's going back up, I will start from the bottom and work my way back up. Right in the middle of the paper. Once I've worked my way back up, I'll tie just a basic square knot, cut it off, and then next will be time to put in the little bow tie that's in the back that kind of marks the back of the hat. Once I get that sewn in, this is what it looks like. So next will be time to put it in the hat and sew the sweatband into the hat. And after that, next will be to stretch the hat to the proper size. So I put my hat stretcher on the inside here, and I'll get my tape measure and I'll just measure the outside of it. What I'll do is go a little bit bigger than the size I'm going for. In this case is 60 centimeters. And just to account for any shrinkage of the felt. And so since I'm stretching it out a little bit, the brim gets a little warped. So I'll lay my towel on top of the brim here. Since I've already sanded it down, I'll go ahead and use the towel to protect it and just go ahead and flatten out the brim with my iron. And after that, it'll be time to work on the ribbon. As you can see, I did a little bit of a pre-bash there on the hat itself. I just kind of wanted to see what it was going to look like. I get a little impatient that way. But for right now, I'm working on the ribbon. This is just the main part of it. It's going to have the little accent piece at the top. And what I'll do is I'll get my shape, my length here. I usually will kind of guesstimate. I've even held it up to the hat just to sort of see what is going to be best. And then after I do that, I really like to lay the little towel on top of it because I don't want to mess up the look of the ribbon or discolor it in any way. And then I'll make my center pinch and then sew that together, and then I'll have my middle piece here that I'll get sewn in as well. And what I generally like to do is for this middle piece is to cut it, get it sewn together, and then slide that piece onto the ribbon, and then sew it all together so none of it moves. And this is what it'll look like. Even has that little accent piece on the back there, which most fedoras have, especially the Indiana Jones style. And then I'll have my piece that goes around. I'll get it measured and cut, and then I'll just go ahead and have that sewn on. I'll usually cut the ends of it the same shape as the ribbon, so that way it's not seen behind the actual bow itself. And I really like this part because it really shows how the hat's gonna look. So now that I have that sewn in, as you can see there, I cut the ends of them a little bit narrower to fit behind the bow. So once I get that sewn in, then I'll be able to sew the ribbon, the actual bow onto the ribbon, and that part will be done. And now it's time to actually shape the hat. This is actually my favorite part of the entire hat making process, because this is the part where the hat really starts to come together and show what it's going to look like as the finished product. And something about steaming this part and shaping it is just satisfying to me. So since this is a Raiders hat, it'll have that tight pinch on the front. I did this one a little differently. I want my center dent to line up well with the sweatband that's on the inside, so I just kind of held it down like this, and I didn't want to push too much on the dent. I didn't want to push down too much where it would make the crown shorter or look weird, so I just did it just enough where it was just right, and mostly just eyeballed everything. And once I get that first initial shape, I'll give it a good pinch on the front so that it holds, and then apply more steam, and then continue to create the shape, the pinching there on the front going up and down, and then on the sides right there going across the top. That's really going to give the shape of the hat. So when it comes to shaping the brim, I just like to make sure that the front part is going downward and then the sides are going up. I really like to go a little bit higher on the sides than what I'm wanting, because it eventually falls to the place where I need after I'm done steaming it. So making sure the front is down and the sides are up, and that's usually pretty good to give you a good Indiana Jones style brim. After a little more steam, I'll let the hat set, and then it will be done. And this is the final result. The brim is 2 5/8 inches wide, and the crown is 5 inches tall. The ribbon is 1.5 inches, just like the other hats, but I think the original was 1 3/4. That's pretty much the only difference. This hat, like I said, is 60 centimeters, so it's more of a larger size. And my brother, actually, I had him come over and try this hat on, because when we were growing up, he could never find a hat that actually fit his head. So he was thrilled to death to try this hat on. But eventually it did end up with its owner, and he was happy with it as well. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and hit like. And if you're enjoying this content, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos of me making hats from my very own cabin here. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.